Good evening and welcome to Chit Chat Live for the week of August 10th, 2015. Today we will be talking about last Sunday's episode of Who Do You Think You Are, which featured award-winning actor Alfre Woodard. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. My name is Shannon Combs Bennett. I'm the creative director for the In-Depth Genealogist. With me this evening are Jennifer Alford, our publisher, and Terry O'Connell, executive director, with our special guest, Amy Coffin from amydoreen.com. Welcome, ladies. How are you tonight?
Good.
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Great. We're glad to have you here. We like having guests. It's fun.
We get tired of each other.
It's a family.
I didn't say it.
You're right.
So we had the wonderful episode. I thought it was an excellent episode this last weekend. What were your overall thoughts of the show, ladies? Anyone want to jump in first?
Powerful.
It was powerful.
I just loved that, like, she would spontaneously start singing.
That was pretty awesome.
I was like, you know, a lot of people like music and singing and, you know, playing instruments is a big part of their lives. And it was kind of neat, you know, as a celebrity to get to see a little bit of, you know, what she thinks is her family and, you know, and songs that mean something to her.
And a little bit of her personality, because only certain types of people could get away with doing that. Or pull it off, I should say.
Very true.
I thought it was interesting how she poured, was it liquor? Was she pouring on the land?
I think
the
it was
water?
just water.
She kind of, it was like a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
She said a spirit.
Yeah.
Libations.
Yes.
Libation. That was the word.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was very interesting too.
Yeah, I've seen people do that before. When she was talking about it later when she went back, and of course I didn't write down the name, and it's a woman, Diane Barry, who was the researcher there. When she went back and was talking to her about it, I didn't realize that it was, I've seen other people do it, you know, the walking of the land. I always get a very powerful sensation when I walk the land of my ancestors, and that kind of goosebumps and the realization that I could be walking in their footsteps type of thing. So I could totally relate with that. And I have heard of other people and cultures doing the, you know, pouring of the libations or leaving food or leaving offerings, you know, to let the spirits know they were there. But I didn't realize that it was such a, maybe I'm wrong, but she made it sound like it was a very integral part of the African American culture to do that.
That's what I got out of that too.
Yeah. And I liked it that she did it barefoot, too.
Yes.
She's braver than I am.
I don't think
Yeah.
my feet are too sensitive.
I saw that as she kicked her shoes off. I'm like, oh, she's not gonna walk.
I'm from this. I mean, in Texas we have fire ants, and so
Goat heads.
Yeah, so barefoot to me, and then nobody really knows this, but the production company had me go to a cemetery in Wharton to look, and I accidentally wore sandals, and I was kind of, you know, cursing myself, like, that is just such a rookie thing to do. How could you do that? Just because, you know, we know what happens in cemeteries and what you can run into.
Mm-hmm. Did your feet come out okay?
I tiptoed, and I was looking down all over the place for ant holes or gopher holes or, you know.
All these deadly traps that they set
Joys
for
of
you.
cemetery exploration.
Right, right. Well, it's interesting to know that you were on the production show and for the show. So anytime you want to jump in with anything that you're allowed to tell us, we of course would. Any information you give us, we'll eat up.
I think there's a lot I can tell you because I was given the task, and I don't know who knows this. It's not Ancestry's show, and it's not the Learning Channel show. It's another production company.
Right.
So
It's Shed.
And so I was contacted by them, and I worked with them, and I was just given a little piece. And so I researched the Texas part, which they alluded to, but they didn't really focus on.
Right.
At the time, and now that I got to see it, it makes sense that they did that piece. Had it been a 2-hour show, I think my part might have been more integral, but I got to do later Alex Woodard. So,
very cool.
and the the document, the loan document that made her cry, that came from Wharton, but they kind of made it look like it was in Louisiana. But I was watching it, I was like, that's my document, and so I got something in the show. I was so proud of that.
I made the cut.
Yeah, and that's my document. But it was kind of neat to do the research. They didn't tell me anything. I didn't know. I mean, I knew about Alex's Georgia birth and the path to Louisiana, but I didn't know who was doing the Louisiana research. I didn't know what they found. I really just had my little 1890s to 1910s Alex Woodard and his family. So, even though I did a lot of research for them, I was still excited, and I didn't know anything about the show just like everybody else. So it was kind of neat to see the land and I didn't have a photo, so I was excited when I got to see the photo of Alex. It was a really interesting experience, and as any genealogist knows, you get attached to the people you research, whether you're interested or not. And so it was just a really rewarding experience.
That's awesome. So the production company, you said, okay, so it's not TLC, it's not Ancestry, it's Shed that takes care of contacting the people for the research. Now, my understanding was that like the Ancestry professionals or pro-genealogists were the ones doing research. Are they doing the majority and then piecing out like the pieces like for you in Texas where they're not?
Hang on, I'm going to interject real quick because, Terry, this is a perfect plug for our August issue of the Going In Depth magazine, where I did an interview with the producers of Who Do You Think You Are?
I didn't read your...
And that question gets answered. But I'm gonna let Amy answer. Then I will tell you what they told me to. If she doesn't.
I don't have an answer. I got an email and contacted them. Where I had to go was Wharton County, which is south of Houston. It was a bit of a drive, and it's a little bit rural. So I think I was just in the right place for what they needed. I believe they did a little bit of filming at Clayton Library, which is our genealogy library here. But I did a lot of the grunt, the 8 hours at the tax records and stuff like that you don't see. So
right.
I just know the part that I was asked to do, and it's small town, county, courthouse type stuff.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, what I was told when I spoke, and of course now I'm not going to say the names because I don't have them in front of me, and I always mess up names if I don't have them in front of me. But it's one of the producers and the head research and an assistant producer were the two ladies that I interviewed over the phone. And they are for Shed, and Shed production company does a lot of Shed Media. They do a lot of stuff everywhere. And one of their productions is Who Do You Think You Are, which TLC then broadcasts.
Right, okay.
They do work with pro-genealogists, which is from an Ancestry company, correct?
Yes.
Okay. They do work with them on a lot of the initial research and other type research, and Shed also has a research team. And both of them, they don't know either who they're working on.
So they didn't tell me it was Alfre Woodard.
Yeah,
now,
they don't tell anybody.
Woodard, yeah, I didn't know. I knew the name Woodard, and I said, I only know of Alfre Woodard. But Alex had like 15 or 20 kids, and so I was like, honestly, it could be anybody because I didn't know. But they didn't tell me. They don't say anything.
No, and that's one thing.
I had to sign a big old NDA. I couldn't talk about anything, but I didn't know. They kept me in the dark, too. So I was kind of excited to see the whole show.
Right. And then I said, well, how do you find the people on the ground? And she said, they both said, well, one, what we do is if we know of a repository or an institution in the area, we'll contact them if we have a working relationship with them and see if they have any researchers they would recommend. But then they also, if anybody wants to know why you should put your name out on APG, they go to the APG website and pull people.
So you're telling me I need to rename, huh?
So yeah, if you're on the APG website and you have specific research localities or places you're willing to go, and make sure all that stuff is up to date, because you never know when you might get that call from the company saying, can you go pull a record for us?
I don't, I don't want to put myself down, but I think I got this because I was near Wharton County, not because I'm, some magical person. I was willing to drive out to Wharton County and stomp around, the Red Ant Cemetery and go down to their courthouse and that kind of stuff. So it helps to have, proximity wins a lot of the time if you're in the right place for what they need.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what she totally made it sound like.
It makes me think, because I've got an email maybe about a month ago for the Abraham Lincoln Library in Springfield. Somebody got my name off the researchers list, and I replied, I'm like, honestly, you might need to find somebody closer. I'm willing to do it, but it's a 3-hour drive, so it's going to cost a lot.
Right.
But if the right company calls you, yeah, you're going to make the 3-hour drive.
Right, exactly. If you give me that information ahead of time, I'm all for it.
I can't tell you how horrible a drive it was to Wharton, but I was like, I'm in. When do you need me?
Yeah, you
Like,
don't get
go right now.
That's right. Well, let's get back on the episode before we keep going down this rabbit hole, because this is one of those rabbit holes that could go on for hours. I'm convinced. So, I have to say, one of the I loved how they used the census record in the beginning, but I liked how they used tax records and how people don't think to use tax records. But from what I understand through African American research, using those tax records can be a way, and estate records, a wonderful way to break down brick walls. Have you all had any experience with that, or any comments?
I have a comment.
Sure.
If I can. I told you I was in charge of researching his later years, Alex's later years, and I did use the tax records of Wharton County because that's all I could find. And we were trying to find out when he died, and I, for the life of me, couldn't find a death date, but I was able to shrink down. He moved from Louisiana at some point and died at some point, but I was able to use the tax records to narrow those things down, at least, without... I swear by tax records for that reason. Just really, especially between censuses, it really helps.
Yes, death and taxes right there.
Exactly.
We can't escape.
That's one reason I like Virginia tax records, especially old tax records. They would actually put, if they went and did an assessment after someone died, they would put deceased next to it. So you know that they had to have died within the calendar year between the two. Tax records are awesome.
I had no idea.
Really?
Yeah, I've not used any tax records yet. For the most part, it's been, I don't know, here and there, just random stuff, so... Someday.
I swear every episode I find something I have to go do.
Right away.
Yeah, right then and
when
there.
The episode's over, I gotta go do this.
Like, holy moly, that's an awesome resource. Why haven't I looked at that yet?
Yep.
So what did you all think about the letter that they found from the Freedmen's Bureau? Do you all remember that?
Yes.
Because I kind of like, what? That was my look at the television. What? Where?
That was attractive.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I periodically make those attractive faces.
And they put noises, too.
Shush.
I don't remember the letter, and in my second viewing, that's exactly where I turned it off at.
But it kind of drove home, I think, to especially my kids when we watched it together, how, because, they looked at me and they're like, but the Civil War was over. How can this person say, essentially, to me, to them, it sounded like he said, no, you can't have them, and, well, I'll let them go if they want to go, And they were both very confused by this whole concept that even after the Civil War, people still might not have realized they were free.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Which I thought it was very interesting that they explained Juneteenth so that everybody kind of can understand that.
Yeah. my husband turned to me and he goes, "Oh, so that's what Juneteenth is about. I've never, people talk about it and celebrate it, and I never knew." And I was like, yeah, I don't think I really knew either. So it was good that they covered that. I think people have much more appreciation for what it means now.
And I love that she shared that that was more important than the 4th of July in her family. That was a bigger celebration. Yeah.
I would think so.
Amy, did we lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, good.
Just
Because
listening to your Juneteenth experiences.
well, it's interesting living near DC because Emancipation Day is a holiday.
Oh,
Really? Good.
All DC offices are closed.
That's interesting.
That's cool.
So I have several. I hope that wasn't me dinging. I think I turned everything off. I'm sorry, a very loud ding in my ears. I have several friends well, lots of friends actually, now that I'm in Northern Virginia, who work in DC, and yeah, I'm like, you get no matter what day it falls on, they're like always that day. It's not like, some holidays which are always like, this third Monday or whatever it is, but yeah, they get it off every year, so
That's
it's
cool.
more of a taught thing up here, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
All right.
let's see. I want to add, was it Shannon that had the kids that were wondering about the after effects of? I did have one experience researching. I was trying to find Lizzie's death date. That's Alex's first wife, and Alex's death date. And I found some of the death certificates for Alex's kids because Family Search has Texas death certificates. So I was able to get those, but I wanted to use those dates to get obituaries. And I found none for any African American member of that family. I found none. I looked at the little local papers. I went to downtown Houston and looked at their papers, and I could find none. And even in the 1910s and 20s, in Texas and in that area, I struck out everywhere I could in trying to find African American records. So, decades later, it still is a challenge to try and research your ancestors, at least in this part. And they would have, these big obituaries for local people, and then a little tiny thing that said, colored boy kicked by horse. And it had no name, and you don't know who that is. So, I struck out with at least 12 obituaries trying to find just some sort of closure or information on Alex or even his parents, and I found nothing. And that was kind of eye-opening for me because I've never been so frustrated and so blocked trying to research a subject. And, decades later, still trying to do it. It's a challenge.
Right. I'm running into the same thing. I've been helping a very good friend of mine probably for about 3 years now. And he's African American. His family's from Baltimore, Northern Virginia, a couple down in Carolina. But it's one of his lines, we can't get past his grandparents.
Yep.
The other line, we got one generation further back, and then it's cold, And he's like, but there has to be stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. We've researched it every time we think of a new lead, or he sits down, or he flies out to California to visit his mom. He sits down and tries to pick her brain some more about the family history. It doesn't help that his father died almost 20 years ago, so he doesn't have any living family left on that side. So he's kind of remembering stuff from childhood to fill in some of the gaps, and it's very frustrating, but. I sat down with him and we looked at the timeline for some of his ancestors, and I said, all of these people were born during slavery. That may be our problem. It may be that we can't get past that part, and I think he's accepted it, so we've tried to fill in their lives, the ones that we found, as much as possible now. But it's very disheartening.
Yeah.
And on a brighter note, let's
understand.
Oh, let's try to think of something different because that's going to make me really depressed now all night. And I'll have to get off the chat and I'll have to pull up his tree and I'm going to have to like go until midnight.
But I think that says it well when she said, "My roots are wide and they're not deep."
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. Oh, she had really good quotes.
Oh my gosh, I got a couple written down. I had to go back to some kind of quotes because as I was watching, I was like, "Ooh!" But it was like 1:00 in the morning after my day at the fair, and I was exhausted. But I had to watch.
Well, the two that got me right off the bat, like in her little intro section where she's, talking about it, she said that, I am tracing a spirit. I was like, ooh, that's really powerful. Her father and then that on back. And then she closed that section with family is life to me. Like, I couldn't sum it up better.
Yeah.
I'm the manifestation of my father and my mother's dreams and efforts.
Yep.
Powerful.
She is a good wordsmith.
Complete.
I only get profound when I'm drunk, so.
We'll split you at Jameson and come back in an hour.
Shut up.
Though I do have to say, okay, so show-wise, they really hit on quite a few things that are important for researching for anybody, And the first thing is searching for your name variations. Alex, Alec. Keep track of them all. Yes.
Did you really see all those?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Woodard, Woodward.
Mm-hmm.
You have to search them all. You have to keep track of all of them and search all of them.
Yep. Phonetics. It's all about phonetics. And then you use age as a guide.
Oh, the ages were horrible in the records that I had. His kids, all over the place. 8 years difference in birth dates. I had one in a birth certificate said she was born in 1902, but she's in the 1900 census. I mean, just write down everything, assume nothing.
Right. It's funny. I have on my Irish line my first, second, my third great grandfather. Between his first marriage and his second marriage and the census records, he loses 40 years. Dude, you can't do that because you're saying you're born when you were married the first time. So it is quite interesting. So I thought that it was great that they showed that because a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm searching for the O'Connells, and I'm like, okay, you need to search for O'Connell, find the Irish variation, search for that as well. There's always different things to look for. Make a spreadsheet, search them all. It's what works. I mean, I have one surname. I have 8 different variations for it. And they're all, really, the different spellings, different pronunciations. It's crazy. The other thing that I thought was really interesting when she talked about their play family or their play kin. Now, that's not anything I've heard before, but I've not done any African American or slave research. But I thought that was really interesting how they created their own family within the family that they were at with all the other slaves. That was very, I guess it's kind of eye-opening to think about those kids that really aren't with their parents.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I guess making it even sadder, right?
There are some times you can't have stories that are happy-go-lucky, no matter how amazing or wonderful or eye-opening they are. There's always going to be an element of sadness to them. I think this is one of those because, she's not hiding from the past. Things were put very upfront and very open. We've talked about it in past shows. I can't talk about what it's like to see my ancestor, listed as property, but I could talk about the first time I ever saw an ancestor with an inventory like that and how that was very powerful and eye-opening for me. It's not the same.
No.
And you feel that shame and you feel that hurt and you get very angry and you have to kind of take a step back. So I can't even imagine, but I could try to imagine trying to, distill those thoughts and feelings and emotions into that person. Now that probably didn't make any sense, but I knew where I was going when I started.
It made sense.
Okay.
Well, I'll say this. When we went to South Carolina in April, we went to the Slave Museum in Charleston.
Right. Those are beautiful pictures you took.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was heart-wrenching. And, some of the stuff I stopped, I looked, I read, and other stuff I kind of, just perused by because it was just so emotional to, just think about everything that they went through.
Mm-hmm.
When we got outside, Al said to me, he goes, "Did you see the shackles for the children?" And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "They had shackles for, babies." And I'm like, "I didn't see it, and I don't want to know about it. It's way too much."
Right.
It's very, definitely a very hard subject, no matter, I think, what side your family lies on. Because like you, I definitely had that moment when I found, the first census record that showed, I had an ancestor owning slaves. Wow.
Mm-hmm. It just says where our society has moved on from. You can never ignore the past, but you can't change the past. You kind of have to understand, learn, and
Move forward.
And move forward and try not to repeat it.
Yeah.
I have a friend who found in a will the mention of, I leave my Negro boy too.
Mm-hmm.
And this she found maybe 10, 15 years ago, and she still says to me, "I just want to know what happened to that Negro boy."
Yeah.
There was no other mention of him in future documents or anything. It's sad.
Ah, Terry, you brought me down again.
Sorry. I knew it would be a hard episode, though.
It is. It's a really hard episode.
And
but I think they are all things that were good, and they needed to be talked about, and they needed to be shown.
Yeah.
It was a good
And the one thing I think was great is that, through the years, there's been many complaints that, who do you think you are is very centered on the white American. So I was glad to see that they did this year, but they showed so many records, that people aren't using or people don't know, I did a beginning workshop for genealogy down at the Harold Washington Library last year, and out of the 12 people, I think 11 of them were African American, and they had so many questions I couldn't answer because I was like, I've not done this type of research, these are the places I would go look. These are the people I would go find on Facebook because they had the answers. It was all I could do, look for the slave dwelling project, look for Alfre genes, those were the only things off the top of my head where you could find answers. So,
right.
I think it's maybe something more of us need to become a little versed in, just to have a little knowledge. Mm-hmm. Would probably be powerful.
One thing I do at conferences, I attend at least 1 or 2 African American genealogy sessions just to keep up because of my own history and helping others. So I find it fascinating. And you find you always find a nugget of something in every session. And so I would suggest that if you have kind of an open hour, go check out a session and something you know nothing about and learn.
That's very smart. Very smart.
That's a great idea.
And
it's funny.
Go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
Say, a couple years back, I went to a presentation by Dr. Debbie Abbott, and it was at the Licking County Genealogical Society here in Ohio, and she was talking about some slave research that she had done, and I have no history that I know of. I'm sure some of my Alfreds who were down in Arkansas probably owned some slaves, but I haven't gotten that far. But anyway, so her presentation, it talked about all this different methodology and the tax lists and so forth. And I found it very helpful in my Jewish research because it really brought to my attention some other methodologies I could be using. So, even though I may not use that aspect of the African research, it gave me new ideas for my own research. So it's definitely something that we can all benefit from, is going to something new and seeing what you find out.
Definitely brings you outside the box, right? The box of normal. This is my normal. Learn something new. Hey, I just want to say I have Licking County people.
Do you?
Yes.
Wow.
Where did that come from?
Well, she said she was at the Licking County Genealogical Society thing, listening to Deb.
That's where
I just wondered how I have people from there.
Well, if you ever need anything looked up, I will do my best for you.
Isn't that the place where on Genealogy Roadshow they talked about the coal fire that's still burning 100 and something years later? 100.
That's Hocking County, I think.
Oh, Hocking County. Okay.
South.
I got people from there too.
That's a beautiful
Sorry.
area.
Okay.
Little beer. Squirrel.
So we're getting too close to our time limit, so I'm going to start asking for any last thoughts, tidbits, comments. How about you, Amy? Anything that you think we didn't touch on that is important? Or any comments you have?
No, I think you covered it all. I appreciate being invited. I enjoyed the show. I really liked her. She seemed really touched and just in tune with her ancestors, and it made me want to learn more about them.
I think that helps. It helps them make
You know-
them seem like more people.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think this year so far, okay, we know that the J.K. Rowling show was redone from BBC, or
Mm-hmm.
both of the women so far have been very moved by their findings and stuff, and that makes it great because I think it really reaches out to others to say, oh my gosh, I can totally do this, or I need to do this.
Yeah.
Great season so far.
Agreed.
We only have 3 more episodes.
I know, it's too short.
Short.
What about you, Jen? Any other comments?
No, I just really, I enjoyed seeing, some of her culture that she's grown up with, and some of her rituals. I loved the walking barefoot on the land and pouring the libations. I thought that was just awesome, and yeah, she seemed very authentic to me and appreciative, which to me that just makes me like a celebrity even more.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I talk a lot, so I'm pretty sure everybody knows my opinions by now. So on that note, I am going to call it for this evening. We've gone just over half an hour, which is pretty good for us. Now, thanks to everybody out there who are watching. We appreciate you watching. It was great having everyone here. Thank you again, Amy, for agreeing.
Thank you.
Come back anytime you want to. Just let us know.
Love it.
So just a reminder, next week we'll be covering this Sunday's episode of Who Do You Think You Are? And it is an Into the Vault episode. And from what I understand, it's going to be not only a few of our favorite and most loved scenes from the past seasons of Who Do You Think You Are, but also cut segments and extra little tidbits, behind the scenes, outtakes, bloopers, those types of things. So even though a lot of people don't like clip shows, hopefully this one will be worth the wait. And on that note, remember, we would love to hear from you. Drop us a line in the comments below. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or send us an email at editor@theinDepthGenealogist.com. And on that note, have a great day, and remember to go in depth with all of your ancestors. Bye.